All right, let's see. Can y'all hear me? Are y'all able to hear me? Okay, great. All right. There we go. There goes my good microphone. All right. Sorry for that short delay. Hello, everybody. And yes, we are celebrating Cave of Mystery 6th birthday. This is year 6 of me doing ministry in public, going on year 7. So what I'm doing is a free Q&A session. I know. So normally, the only time y'all get Q&A sessions is on Patreon. First Saturday of every month, there's a Q&A session. So these outside of that are very rare. So we're going to have some fun. And yeah, I'll give y'all a few updates while I wait for y'all to start typing comments in the comment sections. But pretty much, yes, I am based in Kenya. I'm based in Nairobi. We have officially gotten our facility where we're going to start building it. We're going to do an official launch within the next few months or so. So in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a bunch of decorating, a bunch of praying and cultivating, and a bunch of training until we can be fully open and operational to the public. But we actually do have the location. Paid rent, spent money, signed leases, and all of that stuff. So we're locked in. Now, for those of you who decide that you want to donate, you can do so via the website, caveofmystery.org. There are donation forms there for those of you who do want to contribute financially. Other than that, those of you who are in the Nairobi area or willing to come travel to see me, I'd love to see you. Or if you want to come help me with what I'm building, that's also an option. But all right. So those are the main things that I wanted to cover. Let's see. More courses and classes are coming out. I was gone for a bit because we just got done doing a business summit in Nakuru and in Nairobi. So I was busy for 9 days straight. And for the person who keeps asking for a Zoom or StreamYard link, it's not happening. Y'all just have to type your comments out, your questions out, and I'll answer them here. Let's see. Any thoughts on A Course in Miracles, if you've heard of it? So, so someone actually gave me that book as a gift for Dunamis Day, and I haven't read it yet, but I do have it now. You know, no creases in the pages, nothing. All I did was take it from Texas to Kenya. So once I have time, I'll add this to the list of books I need to read. But as for now, I have no comments. All right, y'all, I'm gonna try to do at least an hour, but I got to keep the questions coming. Let's see. So what are your thoughts on the unforgivable sin? So in order to talk about an unforgivable sin, we have to first understand what sin is. So sin is not an action. It's not something you can do. Sin is a state of being. So the idea of an unforgivable sin isn't an unforgivable action. It's a state of separation. So it's speaking to the mentality, the consciousness, the state of a person that you might consider unreachable, which is why they say the unforgivable sin is blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. Now, why in the world would that be the unforgivable sin? Because Holy Spirit, her job as the priest of all of creation is to actually bring all things together, which means the only way that you can be out of that reality is if you're actively resisting her. So the unforgivable sin isn't something that's forever punished, but more so a state of active rejection of the embrace, active rejection of love, active rejection of inclusion and truth, and all of those things. Let's see, would it be effective to heal the hearts of the controlling forces on the planet, whether humans or aliens, to create freedom and higher awareness on the planet faster? That happens over time. One of the things that we have to come to terms with is that everyone and everything has free will. So there isn't some special technique that we can usher in that's going to just snap people awake overnight. What I've found to be most effective is simply being the light that people are looking for in the midst of darkness. And the more people become light and live their lives as light, the more people start to wake up just due to the activity. We see the world as asleep. We see the world as dark. When I was a kid and they were waking me up for school, they used to cut the lights on in order to wake me up. That's what the world needs. More people to be light outside. One of the horrible things that's become common is that all of the people who start to embrace life, light, and truth become recluses. They become hermits. They go hide out in the mountains away from the world. They let darkness cast them out instead of light that they are casting darkness out. Let's see. Who is the individual that stops John and tells him to write in the scroll? I don't know. Do temple structures overlap in relationships, or is this a completely independent structure for everyone? Technically, when operating in the temple, we're all in the same place, just not necessarily aware of each other. Let's see. How to surrender and be trained at the same time. So, surrender is something that's hard to teach because it's you choosing not to govern yourself. It's you choosing not to lead 100% of your life. It's you taking responsibility. And at a certain level, you can say it's humility. Realizing that you, at your current state, can't make all the best decisions for yourself. So you trust someone who can make those decisions. And in that case, that's not even me, that's the royal family and the seven, until you're mature enough to make those things. So surrender, if I were to paint a picture, isn't necessarily the idea, there's levels of surrender. I like to look at a person on a boat, a sailor, someone navigating a boat. You could look at surrender as them lowering their sails and cutting off the engine and letting the water take it wherever it does. That could be a picture of surrender. One that I found that fits my understanding and my reality of surrender more is that if you take a cup of water and pour it into an ocean, they merge together so well you can't tell where one stops and one starts because they're moving in perfect sync with one another. That I like a whole lot more as a picture of surrender. It's letting go of your ego and choosing to live from the place where you're already on one accord. But even that's a practice. Most of our lives, we live from our lower selves. We live from the outer court. So we're not used to it. And that in itself is part of the training. Is Eden an actual garden on earth? It was at one time. You often speak of the Old Testament biblical prophets speaking to God face to face. Were they speaking to Yahweh or to El? They knew Yahweh. Each age per scripture has a messenger. How do you define this, and who is the seventh age messenger? I don't believe in that theology. I don't believe in a singular messenger, and neither did scripture. Most of the messengers and prophets were contemporaries in the Bible. What is ultimate goal for you while here on this earth? On earth as it is in heaven. I'm doing my part to make earth look like heaven, to operate like heaven, while also waking up more people to help me with this job. Did at any time El interact with the Old Testament prophets and was written about? No. El isn't really this. He's referenced in the Bible briefly, but he doesn't make many appearances. The only two times off of memory that I can say El actually showed up in the Bible was the Mount of Transfiguration and Yeshua's crucifixion. Other than that, he doesn't make an appearance. Most of the Bible is Yahweh and Yeshua fighting for supremacy. And let's just say early Old Testament is Yahweh fighting against all of his siblings. Let's see. Righteousness equals right living. Any more to know about what righteousness means? If one makes a mistake, does that not nullify righteousness? Righteousness is something that we eventually learn how to operate in. It's doing the right thing. But if I were to rephrase it in a way that might make a bit more sense, it's doing what's necessary per situation. In our hands, we're given two tools to use for any situation. We have justice, we have mercy. Sometimes the appropriate thing for a situation is to extend mercy. Other times it's to extend justice. Righteousness is doing what's right per circumstance. Let's see. Do you know what happens to people who do evil things on earth when they pass away, like heaven or hell? So the thing about that is that we are simultaneously already living in three separate worlds. So when a person dies, if they choose to die, they end up just continuing life wherever their soul and spirit already were. So it's not even a sentencing. It's just they now become aware of where they were already living from. So if they were a wicked and evil person, they're likely going to end up in an evil and wicked place because they were already in an evil and wicked place in those higher worlds. Are the seven lampstands and seven stars the same as the seven spirits? I can't speak to the stars because I don't remember what that's from, but the lampstands, yes. Do you think that there are people that invoke spirits and can do or still work with Yeshua like you? Absolutely. I'm not the only one that teaches face to face or has these types of encounters. Excluding my students who've started having the same experiences, there were other people before me teaching on it. People like Bruce Allen, Nancy Cohen, Ian Clayton, Mike Parsons, Justin Abraham, Dr. O. There are plenty of people who are already having encounters like this. Sadhu Sundar Singh, Sadhu Sundar Selvaraj. Many of the Catholic saints, Francis of Assisi, Teresa of Avila, Martin de Porres, these are things that people were experiencing long before me. Let's see. I tried to experience an OBE for years now, but nothing seems to work. What am I doing wrong? One, you're trying to leave your body. My recommendation is to listen to my teachings on Triunion to get a new frame of reference. But trying to get your soul to come through your body is very difficult when it doesn't have to go through your body to have an encounter. How does God deal with people that have done bad things or evil things? My question for you is, which God? Let's see. Can you teach me how to pray properly? I have made a video on YouTube that you can find in the Sonship and Mysticism Basics playlist called How to Pray. How does Yahweh feel about how you speak about him or telling people he's not the Father? Funny enough, me and Yahweh get along. After I did my lecture on the ways of Yahweh, I actually had an encounter where he popped up at my job. And he actually congratulated and thanked me for making it. So as far as I'm concerned, he likes my teachings. Let's see. Since Yahweh is the God of the Old Testament, and in religion they think that is the progression of humanity to the New Testament, what was the rest of the royal family doing during the Old Testament? So the world didn't stop at all, right? The other family members just continued to exist outside of the narratives that the Bible shared. In some cases, when they did overlap in the Bible, Yahweh was actively fighting them and picking fights with them and trying to take their territory. He was on a rampage for a certain part of the Bible, but life went on. There's entities, there's other family members that he didn't end up battling just because they weren't in the regions he was rampaging in. So life continued. Life went on. They moved around. They worked in other cultures, other spaces. Some of them, or you could say even most of them, were actively helping us while their sibling was rampaging on the earth. The kingdom of God, or government in ranks, is this how we should be thinking about our real government? It's upside down. We all are restoring Earth. Where are we at in this phase? Let's see. I'm struggling to get your question, but just to reread it, make sure I'm not missing anything. So yes, the kingdom of heaven is a government. It does have ranks. It does have structure. There is an order. Order is not an enemy. Structure is not a bad thing. Usually the reason why it triggers people when you talk about rank and you talk about structure and order is because a lot of times in human history, those three words have been used in order to package some horrible things. In church, they say they want order and they really just want control. At least that was my and many other people's experiences. But actual structure is necessary. It makes sure everything is flowing and responsibility is evenly shared. Now, as far as where are we at in this phase, Earth is actually on an ascension journey. Long story short, Earth used to be perfect. We broke it. Now we're fixing it. So we're actually on the fixing it part of history. It's on its way up, which means that all the things that were created while the earth was down and broken are currently fighting for survival. What was the first language? Telepathy. Woke up to a verse saying God is tired of meaningless gatherings. He wants justice and tired of people not moving. That is accurate. Is Satan evil? I'm confused but somewhat elated after hearing about tough love and offered to do God's work. So Satan, it depends on your definition of evil, right? He's negative, But I personally wouldn't consider Satan wicked because I know who Satan is. Satan and Yahweh are the same person. They play the same role. But think about it like this. You hire a bodyguard. When that person is a bodyguard, I want them to be the most violent person I could get my hands on, the most violent and destructive person I can get when it comes to protecting. As negative as they are, they're serving a purpose that I need handled. They're doing a job that I need. Negative, yes. Evil in the way that most people think, absolutely not. He's just willing to do the tough jobs. Is time really linear? Yeah, it's linear. It's cyclical. Let's see. I do not believe in karma. What's your perspective? I view the same as the frequency you choose to live. So karma is just the magnitude of your cause and effect. So not believing in karma is not believing in cause and effect. If you take a glass and you drop it on the floor, will it break? Yes. Why is that? Cause and effect. That's all that's happening there. Let's see. Are salt showers or baths of any importance in cleansing of negative energy? Do we need to do them? That's not something I recommend. Hold on, y'all give me one moment. Okay, here we go. Let's see. It seems that you need to realize there is no God, to stop looking outside of yourself for salvation, but then to move forward, you must open up to the Father again. How do we resolve the paradox? So I don't necessarily teach that for a start. It's a bit extreme. Starting with there is no God, nah. They exist. It's just we have to change our understanding of God. Most of us have a skewed view of God because we got it from church. Or you can say that God doesn't exist, but gods exist, and we're included in that. So that changes a lot. It's a lot of reframing that needs to happen rather than the outright removal of the concept. What was Sophia's strongest role as she walked with Yeshua? She was wisdom incarnate. Her very essence was important. Let's see. Are children really our siblings, even though we give birth to them? If so, then are our parents really our siblings as well? Really just depends on how you look at it. Spiritually, we're all elves kids. Physically, we have genealogies. So both are true. Are there any spiritual practices we need to be doing during our birthdays? None specifically. I don't have any special rituals or anything for birthdays outside of the stuff I recommend doing just as a lifestyle. Let's see, multiple gods. Yes. So the Bible is a polytheistic book. Elohim is plural. The Bible is all about a bunch of gods. Yeshua and Yahweh are separate gods. Yeshua walks around. He says, hey, don't you know that ye are gods? He's a polytheistic teacher. Let's see. Please share your understanding of Yeshua's return. Do you see it as a future physical return, a spiritual fulfillment, or something else? I see it as both. Right? There's this age of Christ that we're stepping into, where we all walk as anointed ones, and that becomes the dominant species on the earth. That's coming. Then there's also his, let's just say, his mainstay that'll come eventually. Because currently he visits Earth all the time. He never stopped working here. But he's not established here because we haven't finished our part of it. He did his work, passed the baton, and is waiting for us to finish. Let's see. Is chanting beneficial? Does Yeshua look down on it? I don't know that mantra to have any opinion on it. How do you maintain relationships with people that are in religion and have no foundation of light and love? So I live from where I am, and I hold no responsibility nor expectation for people to catch up any faster than they're willing to. So when I'm interacting with people who are still in church structure, still in religion, still in all the stuff that I left behind years ago, I don't do it out of aggression. I just see them as where they are. I still love them. I spend time with them. I be personal. I interact on the things that we have in common and that are okay to talk about. And really just the fruitfulness of my life, eventually they get curious enough to ask questions. And those questions become avenues for them to possibly, if they choose to, step into more of this insanity that I live in. Let's see. Can the dead communicate? And if so, is it always as bad as the Bible makes it sound? Okay, that's a complicated topic. So there's a few answers to that. It really just depends on what a person is encountering. So yes, technically, people who've passed on still do interact with the living world, but there's many different ways that they do that. And then there's other things that people are encountering apart from that. So let's say this, the way that the astral plane works, the world of souls, a lot of the things that people who live from or have most of their experiences in that world are actually encountering isn't even the person's soul, but more so the, let's just say, the leftover information about that person. When I was a kid, there was this show on Nickelodeon called Super Ninjas, where they were training to be ninjas, and his grandfather ended up mentoring him, but his grandfather had already passed away, but he had this holographic projector set up that had all of his thoughts, memories, and everything else that was able to coach him. Now, that was not his grandpa. That was the leftover data bank about his grandfather. And that's very common as to what people are encountering. On the other hand, their soul does actually exist. So that's possible. Now, whether you want their advice or not on that level is also part of the problem, because just because someone is living in a higher plane doesn't mean they have something beneficial to share with you. Even ancestors and stuff can be predatory. It really just depends. Then there's the cloud of witnesses, heavenly saints that are actually clean, holy, righteous, and have great things to share with us about our calling. You get the point. Then there's the familiar spirit aspect, which are, let's just say, predatory entities pretending to be loved ones to gain access to our lives. All of that plays a role, which is why I teach heavily on discerning of spirits, to know what you're actually dealing with. What did Yeshua do exactly during meditation? Nothing. Is it true that there is mention of Yeshua and the plan of his coming all through the Old Testament, as in Isaiah? Yeah, so they did mention him. Yeah, the Old Testament prophets did prophesy about Yeshua. Let's see, I go to sleep and I'll have a dream within a dream. What is this? And I also write down teachings in the dreams, but can't remember them or remember them slightly when I wake up. How do I fix this? So, having dreams within a dream is all just one dream. You're just experiencing it different. Every time you go into another dream while you're in a dream, it's a deeper level of the same message. Now, not remembering your dreams happens for multiple reasons. We have to understand that the soul is smart. The soul considered, okay, before I say that, dreams are messages, dreams are mail. Your soul, when collecting and reading mail, can decide that some stuff is junk or outdated and throw it away. That's part of one of the reasons that's one of the reasons why some of you forget your dreams, is that your soul considers it outdated. Now, another reason that you could be forgetting your dreams is because you've moved past. This is kind of rare, but let's just say you live in a state where you're aware on that level all the time and you're getting messages all day, so you don't have to check it while you're asleep. So you just get to sleep. Then there's the other option where you're actually suffering violence while you're in that dimension and you're being harmed. The messenger is getting attacked. So you're coming back with fragments rather than the whole thing. How do you fix it? Really just depends on what you're encountering. Two of them don't really need to be fixed. The other is a byproduct of the strength of your soul. You strengthen your soul, you stop losing fights in the world where it's trying to check its mail. Let's see, I'm new here and would like to learn mysticism from you. Please advise. There's a YouTube, on YouTube, there's a playlist called Sonship and Mysticism Basics. That's a good place to start. The other option for y'all is my Patreon. Even on there, there's a collection called Where to Begin. Both good resources, as well as my book, Fullness, Guide to Sonship and Mysticism. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. So those are a few options for beginners. Let's see. How does El, the father, there we go, deal with bad or evil people? He doesn't interact with them. The father can be considered a little bougie. He doesn't meet us halfway. He makes us come to him. So wicked people just don't encounter him. Do we go to the lake of fire when we die? It doesn't have to be when you die. The lake of fire isn't a bad thing either. So, yeah. Is the plane we live on flat? No. Is the story of Marduk real? Yeah. If it is, how long was he given the rule and used the power of the other gods in the pantheon? So this is the awkward thing about asking about specific stories. They're all true. They're just being told through the lenses of different cultures. So the culture bleeds into some of the stories. Now, as far as how long was he given the rule, I don't know. Technically, he's still ruling Earth right now. Let's see. Do deacons have rank in the kingdom? Yes, deacons and soldiers and servants are the same. They're kind of just the worker ants. But that's less of a calling and more of a function. That's just something that they're choosing to do. You pretty much sign up to do that. At least biblically is how that worked. I heard you mention having a job. Would you say the royal family assigns our jobs on earth? Is this something we agree to do before coming here? Can we choose to do something else? So your job is simply the reason you exist in the first place. technically, because you have free will, you can choose to do whatever you want. But the only thing that'll ever fulfill you is the thing that you're meant to be, the thing that you already are in eternity. That's really the journey, is getting in sync with ourselves. Do you still sell oils? All of my oils are on a cargo ship headed to Kenya. So currently, no. In the future, they'll be back. Can someone explain how Satan and Yahweh are the same? There we go. Give me some fun stuff. So Yeshua actually calls him that in the Bible, and most people skip over it. He's getting heckled by the Hebrews. He says, "You are of your father, the devil." There comes a moment where Yeshua is getting heckled again, and his disciples don't like it. They say, "Hey, should we call down fire and handle that?" He says, "No, absolutely not. You don't know what spirit you're of." He calls them sons of thunder. That's an insult. He reprimands them. Now, calling down fire from the sky in order to scorch people sounds familiar. That's Elijah, prophet of Yahweh, and how he handled not just the prophets of Baal, but some of the soldiers trying to go to another city. Bible tells you that Satan is the prince of the air. Yahweh, one of the translations of the name Yahweh is the air, the breath, the wind. If I were to ask you to describe the gospel to me, the story or the narrative that most of you say is Satan ruled the world and Yeshua came to free us from Satan. Well, who is in charge before the crucifixion? It's the God of the Old Testament, Mr. Yahweh himself. The Bible says it in many ways, but those are just a few. Now, I've done several videos and several lectures on the topic. You can find them on YouTube and on Patreon. Let's see. Promised Land by Yahweh and present problem, wickedness in Gaza. What's your take? The people, the actual Hebrews, have not lived over there in so long. They haven't lived over there in centuries. It's just wickedness over there. It's unrelated to any bloodlines or any promised land. The land that they're fighting over is barely the land that you read about in the Bible. I'll give you a hint. In the Bible, Jerusalem is in Judea. Today it's in Israel. Those are two separate cities. Something's different. Let's see, where and how can I learn to heal my sick family? So I have a few teachings on healing available on Patreon and on YouTube. I have a healer's course that I do live, usually like once or twice a year. But there is coming a healer's course that's self-paced that you can take pretty soon. As for now, I actually teach how to heal in my book, Fullness. You can get on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Let's see. You mentioned that we are rebuilding the earth that we destroyed. Was destroying the earth part of our soul contracts? No, it was just part of our stupidity. It was part of our collective carelessness. Let's see. What is the royal family stance on people who channel angels and higher beings? Do they believe this serves a higher purpose? Channeling on its own isn't wrong. My personal beef with channelers is that a lot of them are lying to y'all. Because when I actually encounter, when I'm actually reading and studying and encountering these other beings, there's two things that I run into. One, people are channeling beings they've never interacted with outside of channeling. It's a little funny. that you're now the oracle for someone you don't know. It's a little funny. The other thing is that, well, you could split this one in half. A lot of them don't say anything too special. The other thing is that when supposedly channeling, most of them don't sound anything like, not just either in voice, in cadence, and information, like these entities they're claiming the channel for. That bothers me. But the ability itself isn't right or wrong. It's just an ability. What are your thoughts on the confusion or duality of Yahweh being seen as the God of the sacred country Israel versus it being Isis Ra-El? Oh, no. The Isis Ra-El thing is just something that people started doing recently. That legit is his place. Israel is based on pretty much the structure of El. It's named after the prince. But that actual region was his. They took it, they conquered it. He gave it to his people. There were people there before, there were people that occupied after. Narratively, it was theirs for that time. Let's see, they say God is not a God of confusion. It just depends on which God. Because it couldn't be the one of the Old Testament, the one who actually brought confusion and confused the languages. It can't be that guy, right? If the Elohim are you and you are part of the royal family, is it not best to channel pure you like the high? I don't really teach channeling. I teach conversations and interactions. I'd rather just talk. Have there been many creations? How old is Earth? I can't give you a number, but I can answer that yes, there have been several. That's the cyclical nature of Earth. Or let's just say creation. We've created and destroyed on this planet multiple times. Is there an ongoing war in heaven? If so, what would it take for that conflict to come to an end? No. Water above, water below, flat Earth? No. Let's see. I don't feel her as mother. I feel more on the same page and on a mission together. I assume this occurs when we need to be validated and come to her as friend. That's multiple things can be true on the same level. You'll just experience the parts that you let yourself experience. So if you limit yourself to just experiencing mother as a coworker, you'll get that. If you let her be mom, you'll get a lot more. How do you pray to Holy Spirit for another person? You just talk to her. Does hell exist for real? Yes and no. The concept of hell that most people have doesn't exist, but the individual parts exist. It just doesn't work that way. On that topic, I've done like 3 or 4 videos on it. Trying to get clarity on cleansing rituals. Do we need to do any? From my understanding, I feel we are not, but I'm learning and don't want to assume. So I don't teach a lot of cleansing rituals. I start y'all a bit higher. The closest I get to that is baptisms of water and baptisms of fire, because they kind of cover everything. So, not that I believe those are bad, just I find them less effective. Would you consider it safe to connect with Ra Thoth from a spiritual perspective? Why or why not? That's just father and our nephew. But the main thing that I'll say is that for most of you, because most of y'all are beginners, stick with the main three of the royal family until they introduce you to more people. Just because so many of you are still getting used to knowing who you're talking to, I wouldn't want to introduce you to 10 more people, and now you have 10 I don't know who's happening at the same time. But overall, they're not evil or wicked. They're very helpful. Let's see. How can we trust that manifestations of the royal family are real? Objective, and this is why I say to limit yourself to just a few so you know what you're dealing with. And not just our own creative manifestation. People seem to be able to manifest and even angelic lover. So that goes into the way that I teach engagement. I do not tell you to use your imagination for any of this stuff. In fact, I'm very against it for that very reason. That alone keeps you from bumping into something you created, because you're not creating, you're observing, you're interacting. So most of it comes down, a lot of people end up deceived just because of the method they go about engaging with. What are the laws of this physical world, and should I learn those before learning another world, another realm? No, the law of the physical world is just electromagnetism. But it's much better to learn the laws of the spirit, because that's where that's where the most important part of yourself is. Let's see. You've said we shouldn't shut up when meditating. Not quite. What I say is that you shouldn't try to silence yourself. Don't try to silence your mind. Let your thoughts fizzle out. Just choose not to focus on any of them. But let's see, where's the line between talking to yourself and talking to Elohim? Well, when I'm talking to me, I address myself. When I'm talking to someone else, I talk to them. So even in physical interactions with other people, that doesn't change. When we shift it to spiritual, it's the same premise of I'm now talking to this person. You know, I could pick up my phone and pretend to and just talk to myself, or I could actually dial a number and have a conversation. So mostly the difference is posture and the actual thing that's happening. How do you know you're calling? Struggling with that. Cool. So main way to know you're calling is to talk to the royal family, mom, dad, and Yeshua. They're the ones that hold the keys of our identity. What type of oils does he sell? None right now. So if you don't do your job or do what you were created to do, are there consequences? Yes. The world has to suffer waiting for the piece that wouldn't get in alignment. And in certain areas, someone else ends up doing part of that job. Let's see, a lot of what you say aligns with what this person says in channels. Would you be open to reacting to a video of his that catches your eyes, please? I kind of leave other content creators alone. Why did Yahweh require extreme animal sacrifice and blood? So blood looks different in higher worlds than it looks to us. When we see blood, we see death, we see carnage, we see a gross scene. The higher you go, blood is just records. It's just information. Let's see. Religion taught us that thunderstorms and hurricanes were of Satan, but also could be God. Yahweh being Satan makes sense, but how do we view bad, destructive weather now? It's really just a matter of discernment. Sometimes it's just the weather, sometimes it's entities, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Let's see. How do I strengthen my soul? Working with Holy Spirit or Mother, meditation, both mindless and mindful. Based on your teachings, we should be at rest. Is it important to be always contending, as there's so much scripture about wrestling and contending? Ah, yes. That is actually proof of the different kingdoms at work in the Bible. You read about most of the wrestling and contending in the Old Testament because you're dealing with a God of war. But when Yeshua comes talking about his Father and his kingdom, he's introducing people into rest. Much different because it's two separate governments. How can the spirit be perfect, but also wandering in the spirit realm be dangerous? Because so the spirit itself being perfect and being God doesn't mean that your spirit can have is limited from having experiences that you would consider harmful. Let's see, in your view, is the Battle of Armageddon a literal future battle? If so, where do you believe it will take place? It already took place. It's a past battle that happened already. The Super Bible that you sell, are they correct accounts of history? So no. In the introduction of the Super Bible collection that I have, I actually tell y'all that I don't believe in all of those books. I'm just making them available. I don't believe any book is 100% right. Some get close or some are farther. That's y'all's decision to make. I just did the compiling. I didn't pull a Council of Nicaea on y'all and then go through and decide which books are good for y'all. I just gave y'all the books. What is Sonship's Great Commission, if you will? What are we supposed to be doing now? Fixing the earth that we broke and being the gods that we're meant to be. Can you heal my finances now? No, you can heal your own finances. I did a lecture called The Economy of El. You practice that, put it into effect, and you will see results. Let's see. There's also the Imperial Wealth Seminar that you can find on my website and on Patreon. From my understanding, not all people allow a sort of takeover of their bodies. It's more like a phone call where they're listening to the channel being, okay. What was the purpose of creating Adam as male and female, then splitting them into male and female? Adam was all in one. Adam was a physical embodiment of all of the Elohim. Could you elaborate a bit more on the crossing your arms technique that came from Egypt? Yeah, Wakanda forever makes it easier to have astral encounters. At what point did reincarnation start? That's an awkward question because not everyone has multiple lives. What's the role of aliens? They just exist. They're just not from here. Let's see. Who is Cain afraid of in the Bible? Were there other people? Yes, he was afraid of the other people. This guy again. Let's see. Could you explain who or what Babylon the Great is in Revelation? I've come across several interpretations and I'm curious. I don't have a stance. What is your perspective on the idea that 13 beings made this creation? Let's see. Oh, hey, Jeannie. Let's see. So 13 specific beings. Let me see. Let me count. 7, 3. When you say this creation, are you talking about Earth? Or are you talking about all of reality? Let's see. What are the laws of the spirit? That's not something I can answer quickly. I have done lectures on that you can find on Patreon, though. Since the Old Testament speaks about Yahweh mostly, not El, who must we interact with or pray to? Prayer, again, isn't really about the begging. It's just interaction, right? It's just the conversation, the relationship, and that's just the rest of the family. El, Mother, Yeshua, just to start, and of course the 7 spirits. Let's see. For all the folks who claim that the evil beings feed on loose energy, isn't that really the... Okay, that guy again. Let's see. There we go. All right. Is empathy important to humanity? And if so, how do we encourage more people to open up to it and open up their hearts for us and themselves? Be the light that you think the world needs. When you're actually a safe place, people open up. I don't actually come across people who are super closed all too often. That's not something I usually deal with because I've actually spent time working on me and making sure I was safe to interact with. Making sure I had something to offer before I mandated access. But overall, just being light in a world that's looking for it, people open up and they find you. If you've seen the movie What Dreams May Come, I've never seen that movie. Let's see. Would you say that in marriage we connect with partners in the innermost, friends in the inner court, and public in the outer court? Really, relationships as a whole are inner court. Inner or outer? Is the Hermetica useful? Which translation? Yeah, the Hermetica is decent. The Peter Gandy, Timothy Freak translation is decent. Can you explain who Enoch was and what his role was believed to be? I've seen different interpretations and would like clarity on how he's understood across traditions. Enoch was just a prophet of Yahweh who gained favor with Yahweh. People who can move objects say it's mastering electromagnetism, but is this then a less effective method of approaching spiritual powers when we're seated in spirit? It's just different methods of the same result. There's multiple ways to get the same effect, whether it's telekinesis or telepathy or healing. You get the same result a few ways. Let's see. Is there a certain diet that we're supposed to follow? Not really. Will truth always come to light, or are there some that will remain hidden? Truth comes to light. When you take someone to heaven, how long does it last, and would I remember? Usually it takes me less than 30 minutes. Most of the time is getting the person to relax. And yes, they remember because I don't knock you out. Is the moon inside? All right. Y'all, please, no more flat earth comments. If you ask me about the flat earth and I skip and then I don't read the comment, that's why. Let's see. What does Yahweh do with the information in blood? They just read it. It's no different than a book the higher you go up. Read it, use it. It's like a flash drive. It just depends on what's recorded in it. Is Yahweh the same as Marduk? No. Yahweh is the same as Enlil. All right. Let's see. Let's see. With sacrifice of animals, there is suffering of a being. Does El really want us to cause suffering to another? That is a loaded question with a lot of assumptions. In order for you to eat, there's nothing that you can eat that doesn't suffer while you eat it, whether it's plants or animals. Apart from that, yeah. Now, apart as far as L's connection, as far as if he wants suffering, not necessarily, but their understanding of sacrifice looks a little different than ours. We live lower, so it hits a lot closer to home, is the best way I could preface it. Someone asked, what does the showbread represent in the temple? It represents culture, consistency, and discipline. Let's see, do you still have the same disposition as it relates to what's commonly viewed as yoga, as what was communicated in my book? Pretty much. What most people think of when they think of yoga, I have the same stance. It's a very intricate like I can explain more, but my stance stays the same. One, it's an unnecessary route. Two, most people don't know what they're doing and hurt themselves more than help themselves. Or they don't know what they're doing and it doesn't benefit them the way that it could. Could you explain more on what people refer to as warring in the second heaven and how could or would that reflect in our practical lives? So that comes from the belief that they have of there only being three heavens. They believe that the third heaven is, the throne room and all of that. And they believe that the second heaven is this in-between place where demons live. So when they talk about warring in the second heaven, that's their angle. It's not real. A lot of it puts you in the posture of always being at warfare, which means you're either winning or you're losing, or you're getting retaliation. It's a very tiring experience to be in. What's your take on time watches of the day and other beings more receptive to the spirit realm? So I actually teach on the watches, the 8 main segments of time throughout the day. Are there females in heaven? Yes. Who are Holy Spirit's daughters? Yeah. Holy Spirit is a woman. And so is wisdom. And a few others. Should we honor the Sabbath and the feast days? In some capacity. Some of the feasts are very beneficial. Like, I personally celebrate 3 more than any: Passover, Pentecost, Feast of Tabernacles. All 3 relate to Yeshua. As far as the Sabbath, you need a break. What was the mark placed on Cain? I don't know. All right. Yeah, I'm skipping over your questions. You asking stupid questions, so I'm skipping them. Let's see. Why is there such a push and pull here? A golden era, then a slip into darkness. Then God sends workers of light, prophets to level it back out again. Because we have free will and we're all super powerful. So it sways with us. We rise, the world rise. We fall, the world falls. The world is cyclical because we're cyclical. What are the dead doing wherever they are now? It depends on where they are now, but likely not much different than what they were doing on Earth. Whatever kind of life they were living, they're living an amplified version of it in higher realities. Who created souls? Mother. How can we get day 2 of the Imperial Wealth Seminar? You can buy it either on Patreon or on my website. Where do the people that lived and died before the creation? I'm assuming you're asking where do the people go? Yeah, that lived and died before the creation of religion. Same places. Heaven existed long before people started making it weird. And the thing about it, most of the ancient religions describe the spirit world or the levels in the spirit world in a very similar way. How to connect with our spirit guides? I don't actually teach that. Most of what people consider spirit guides are predatory. Let's see. What caused humans to be so disconnected to spirit or the royal family? Why can't it just be something we do automatically? You had to work hard to get the connection you have now. It's been a culture. We've practiced this for a long time. We let it become normal. This was once normal. Being in the spirit, having encounters, this used to be our normal. We let ourselves go. Where is Yeshua's kingdom in the inner or outer court? The outer. Is Santeria from the royal family? Santeria is just a different religion and a different method of engaging the same royal family. It just comes from a people who had to use it to fight, so it comes off as a lot more aggressive. Are mother and father stronger than Yeshua? Let's see. No. In his own way, in his highest state, he's a fusion of the two of them. What's the purpose of AI? Will it bring more harm or good? Or is that dependent on us? It is dependent on us. Let's see, what could most likely be the issue when it comes to talking and listening? Usually the listening part, relaxing, the posture, letting it be easy, trying too hard. Most of that's what people bump into. Were you called to Kenya or did you personally decide to live there? I was called here. I didn't know anything about East Africa. Let's see, how can I go about breaking this curse? Or is the method of specific to the type of curse? What you're looking for is my spiritual warfare and deliverance course that is free currently on my Patreon. It'll be available on my website soon, but it's on Patreon right now for free. How do I find info? On Patreon, Laws of the Spirit, searched and didn't find anything with that title because, yeah, it wouldn't have that title. Would likely be under any of the sessions I've done on the three worlds. If someone dies, will he or she meet the royal family automatically or have to develop himself to meet them as here on Earth? That's really up to them. We don't lose our ability to choose in any of these worlds. But they wouldn't automatically have an encounter just because they died. Let's see. I don't think we cause suffering to vegetables and fruit. Yeah, so there's this thing where they've actually done research, and plants actually scream when we chop them down. When we cut into them, they holler just like animals do. But you may have missed the point of why I said what I said, which is fine. Let's see. Is yin and yang a god? Yin and yang is just mom and dad expressed through the Chinese cultures, the Asian cultures. Do any of the gods require human sacrifice? Yahweh did. Were Adam and Eve the first humans in a biological sense? And where do other non human or alien races fit into this understanding of existence? They were created just like everything else. But as far as the first in a biological sense, that's the thing about the story of Adam and Eve. It's both historical and allegorical. So parts of it are legit, parts aren't. Some of it is metaphorical, some of it isn't, some of it isn't. So as far as if they're the first biological, not quite. Are they telling the story of one of the first people in a certain bracket? Yeah. But at the same time, talking about the origins of all of humanity? Yeah. That's kind of what happens when you stitch a bunch of ancient stories together. They talking about different things at the same time. What about this vibration and energy talk? I don't know. Let's see. Who is the angel of the Lord in the Bible? It's Yahweh's personal assistant. Who is the reaper? There's a few different death spirits, which really just depends on the culture. Have you ever interacted with hominids like Sasquatch? I have not. Let's see. Could modern day Israel still be following Yahweh on the Old Testament? Hebrews did the same. So I can't blame any of what they're doing in Palestine on Yahweh. I can't blame that on him. I can't blame that on Satan. That's a different type of evil. How can you tell if you have a negative entity attached to you? Okay, there's a few things. Attached to you, or let's just say in close proximity, living around you, being too comfortable. Few simple signs: you live in a state of fear, you're always sick, there's always chaos, you don't feel comfortable at home, you feel uneasy, you feel like you're being watched, or you feel unsafe. Those sensations kind of point to something. Can you speak on patriarchy and why women in some societies are viewed less than men? So that's really just a byproduct of the cultures we've chosen. Heaven isn't structured that way, by the way. But yeah, that's just a historical choice. That's one of those byproducts of our own decision that hurts us in the long term. Who didn't want Moses to see his face, Yahweh or El? It was Yahweh. The Old Testament prophets were interacting with Yahweh. Is there a certain posture you're supposed to have when listening? Yeah, expectation, but the same expectation you'd have about meeting a regular family member or going to any other meeting. Why do evil dreams come to pass? Is there a way to prevent it from coming to pass? Dreams are just messages. So the dream, assuming what you mean is that negative things show up in dreams and then they start to happen. Dreams are just messages. So when you see it, yeah, it is opportunities to change it. It just depends on what the dream is trying to warn you about or tell you about. You can either prepare or prevent it. Is reincarnation real? Our souls have been here before? For some people. For me, it's my first time being a human. Let's see. My relatives who passed away are aware of what's happening on Earth or with me. They can be. Just depends on how close attention they're paying. How do you heal cancer from a loved one? I can't really teach y'all healing in a comment. So for those of you who came later and are asking about how to heal, I have healing teachings on YouTube, healing teachings on Patreon. I teach how to heal in my book. And I have a healer's class, which a self-paced version will be available soon. And a live version usually comes once a year. What is the junk DNA in our body really? It's the unused parts of our DNA. Unopened mail. Did Yeshua study Buddhism? He was aware of it, but if you're asking if he was a Buddhist, no. Is Krishna another name of El? No. When people die, do they retain the memories of their lives on Earth? It just depends. For some, because I'll say it like this, sometimes the transition is rough and they do forget. Sometimes the transition isn't rough and they remember most things. They have to learn. So it really comes down to the individual. Is the spirit body like a superior astral body? Is there an upgrade of experience when you reach certain thresholds? Yes to the second question. And I wouldn't consider it a superior astral body. It's just something different entirely. It is a metaphysical form, but it's not astral. It's beyond it. So maybe. Let's see. Were you existing before this incarnation? Yeah. Taking on a spaceship to Tel Aviv? I don't have any comment. Does the spirit ever leave its state of perfection and need work? No. Why you don't want to do Zoom? Because YouTube is working just fine. Let's see. Your level of knowledge shows your commission to passion. What would be your first recommendation of places to go on our first OBE? That's a tough question because I'm not an OBE teacher. I'm a Triunion teacher. But as far as I'll phrase it a little different. Top places to go when having experiences. Any of the seven heavens are on the score chart, right? All of those are options. Meeting Yeshua, meeting Holy Spirit, meeting the Father, meeting the seven. All of those are good places to start. What is the lowest level the spirit body exists if we actually have 12 bodies? I don't really divide our bodies like that. There are certain divisions, just like your physical body has a skeletal system, a muscular system, a respiratory system, a digestive system. We don't really break it down too much. We just say this is our body. All of those individual systems fit one. So even when dealing with the spirit and the soul, I just keep it as one thing. Because even though it has multiple parts, it's still one body. When we spend time with the royal family, does that help lift dense frequencies or distortions we may be carrying? Yes. You become who you spend time with. What is the spiritual root for cancer? Why is it usually so difficult for doctors to cure it? So I don't see cancer as any more difficult than a common cold. The reason why it's seen as so difficult is because we've put it on a pedestal of difficulty. We freak out when we hear cancer, so cancer sticks around because we take it more serious. If we started treating cancer like the flu, less people would die from it. Let's see, I meant to ask, where did you incarnate before now, if you don't mind? It's my first time as a human. Does L know our thoughts? He is our thoughts. He's the very ability to think. When I get to the astral plane, what's the first thing I can do? You're already in the astral plane. That's where your soul lives. Why do you hold the view that Yeshua went to Egypt to learn, or that he went to Tibet to learn Buddhism, or that he went? So I don't necessarily teach that way. He never learned Judaism. He taught in their temple. So a lot of what I know about Yeshua comes from knowing him for the past 7 years, my face-to-face relationship with him. I just so happened to come across other people and other books later on that also shared a lot of the same things that he told me himself. So that's why I do believe he traveled around the world a bit, because he told me he traveled around the world. And just so happens to be writings about some of that. Gospel of the Holy 12 does a decent job on that part. Can you elaborate on L being our thoughts? Our mind is designed in his image. Should we know our past in parallel lives? Parallel, sure. Because that's really what Triunion is about. Choosing to live in all three of your places at the same time, having a full experience of yourself. How are our soul and spirit similar and different? They're similar in that they're not physical, and they're different in that they have completely different jobs. The soul is just designed to take in and process and deal with information. The spirit is the perfect version of you, its source, and it's abundant. So we have different spiritual bodies, but the point is to shift our awareness to them. Yes. That means we have one conscious awareness. Sure. I say it that way because even though it's one, it can experience all three simultaneously, which is how I experience life. I don't have to stop one to continue another. Do you need an anchor to travel safely to and from your body? I don't leave my body. My soul and spirit, y'all say it with me. My soul and my spirit does not live in my body. Therefore, they don't have to leave to have an experience. Do you see our current civilization ending the cycle we currently find ourselves in as a collective and abolishing things like control and wars? I can be optimistic, but that's again a choice of the. We have to make that a reality. We got work to do. Either we learn from the mistakes of the past or we repeat them and hope someone learns from our mistakes later. What does traveling around the world mean to you? Just Earth or different spaces, galaxies, and realms? All of that. Let's see. If Jesus is the second Adam, is Holy Spirit the second Eve? No. Would you agree that we are all a collective conscious just experiencing reality different? On a certain level, yeah. Within the Triunion, does it take you focusing on one particular aspect in order to be present within one space? Or are you always present in a... Me personally, I'm in all of this at the same time. Most of you beginners, it's one at a time until you get it. How does one know they're simultaneously living through the soul and spirit and not just an introspective mind? So it's true for you whether you experience it or not. The choice, or more so the shift, isn't letting it happen. It's agreeing that it's already happening. And then from there, everything gets so much easier. Let's see, Santeria or Ifa. They believe in incantations. Incantations is just saying stuff a bunch of times, no different than the chantings that we're used to. And they really make things happen supernaturally. What's your take, good or evil? They're just different. It's just another method of engagement with the same royal family. I answered this a little bit earlier, that it comes from a culture that had to fight a lot. They had to use spirituality for warfare, so their angle is a bit more aggressive. What is schizophrenia from your perspective? It can be damage to the soul, damage to the brain, or it can be a demon. And depending on what it is, determines how you go about it. If it's a demon, it's easy. If it's healing that just needs to happen with the soul or the body, then it's just a matter of healing. How would Yeshua go about dismantling spiritually harmful ritualistic organizations? Well, it's kind of already happening. You mentioned Epstein. The fact that we know about Epstein is part of it. He is the very light that exposes darkness. It starts with exposing it. Do you think you can evolve enough to create whole realities like the one we live in? Sure. Is it true that when you encounter a negative being out of body, that is just a thought form? No. Just like in the natural, I can be living my best life and go somewhere and meet someone who isn't, and that doesn't make them a byproduct of my own thoughts. That's just me living in the world with other entities. If we don't get it together collectively, do you see something like another reset, like the flood experience? We create and destroy all the time. So sure, yeah, if we don't get it, we try again. Which month this year? It's not scheduled. I'm trying to have the self-paced version of the healer's course done by the end of July. As far as the live one, when I have time. Unfortunately, the royal family has me traveling a lot, more than ever. Are demons created evil, or do they choose to be? That depends on your definition of demon, because a lot gets thrown into that as an umbrella term. But some get corrupted, Some are created that way. Would you say that we are in a time of rebuilding? Yes. Are you able to heal my schizophrenic brother? Maybe. Bring him to the healing session, at the live healing session we're having on July 1st. When people dream about you assisting and giving advice, does that mean you exist on different planes at the same time? So you already exist in multiple planes at the same time. People could be encountering you, or they could be encountering another entity in the form of you, because that's their best way of receiving that entity. Like, for example, a lot of people, when they first meet Holy Spirit, a lot of them experience her in the form of their earthly mother or their mother figure, just to receive her. And then she takes on the form of what she really looks like. Do you offer deliverance online? Not one-on-one sessions, only in group sessions. How did you move away from the church? Yeshua called me out of it. I left Christianity because of him. He made it very clear that he had nothing to do with it. Therefore, I had no reason to stick around. See, do you believe in reincarnation, and does it operate in the domain of Christians? So some people do have multiple lives. I don't. Have you regrown bones or limbs yet? Yes, I have. I'll say not. Well, I'll tell you a story. So we were just in Pakistan. Pakistan, not Palestine. I had someone get upset with me because they couldn't read when I was telling y'all about being in Pakistan. And while we were out there, we saw a bunch of blind eyes, deaf ears. One of the people I ended up praying with was a boy, let's say preteen, teenage age. I laid my hand on his head and I felt he had a spot missing in his skull. And when I put my hand on his head, like when I touched that the first time, I pulled back because it surprised me. Then I put my hand back on his head and I felt his skull grow and meet my hand. So I've seen some of that stuff in person. I've had, back when I was in high school, I had a classmate of mine who his spine was bent at the bottom like this. So it caused him a little extra pain, as you would imagine. Eventually, he let me pray for him. And I'll be honest, it took me a few times to pray for him over multiple days. But this particular day, we were on a field trip. And when I prayed for him this time, his spine straightened out. So I've seen a lot of that stuff. Let's see. Don't you think you're about creating another religion? No. That have their own doctrine and spiritual head? No, I'm one of the few spiritual leaders that will not tell you to stick around with me for forever. I'm actively trying to work myself out of a job. I'm an introvert that doesn't actually want to do this. I'm just at work. Let's see. Is Archangel Michael the same as Yeshua? No, that's his son. I see dark silhouettes on people sometimes. What are they? They feel heavy and scary and don't break eye contact when they know I can see them. Likely demons. A lot of times demons look like dark silhouettes or small dark silhouettes or shadows running around. Since Mother created all souls, can Mother end all souls? Technically, yes, but that's not her nature. Do you know any teachers from Maryland who teach the same or similar things? No. I don't know anything about Maryland. Why do some have more than one incarnation? So some people choose to come back. Other people are sent back to retry. If I call on Mom, Dad, Yeshua, or the seven, would anything else come? They might come with angels and stuff with them, but something opposite of them or something not with them, no. That's one of the laws of the spirit, is that you get what you ask for. When you pray for others to heal, who do you focus on to make this possible, or just let power flow? Healing is an entire science. I'm doing a lot of stuff at the same time. It just looks it looks simple on camera, at least. All dead people will be raised at some point in the future. Yeah. Where will they live again? Some on Earth or somewhere else? Somewhere else? Will they receive the same bodies as ours, or those who are alive will have transformed bodies? Yes, I love it. These are the problems I can't wait to start. A bunch of people get raised from the dead. We have to find out where to house them. And their bodies will be no different than ours. I know a lot of religions preach against desire of obtainment and so on. What's your view on that? Help me with your definition of obtainment, and I'll come back to you. Would you say that we are really awake when we are sleeping, if that makes any sense? More so, you're just experiencing another part of your life. Sleeping isn't necessarily a power down mode, it's just another reality that we're experiencing. What about miracles from Mary and apparitions of Mary? I don't get the question. Do you see reptilian shapeshifters? I haven't met any in person. Well, depends on what y'all consider a reptilian, because, yeah. A lot of y'all were mean to the guy that interviewed me and was like, this guy obviously isn't human. I'm like, well, he's just old. Let's see. Why is deliverance done in group settings? Because it's thousands of y'all. And I don't actually like charging for healing or deliverance. Is there a difference between praying to Yeshua and Jesus? Yeah, they're different people. Yeshua is a real person. So are we going to make bodies for them and then raise them from the dead? If I knew how dead raising worked, I'd be on tour right now. I've just had successes. I have not mastered that yet. Now, as far as stories, I could tell you of other people who've succeeded, like St. Patrick and Francis of Assisi. Both of them had raised people from the dead who'd been dead for decades. And when they came back, their body was just restored with them. Let's see. How long can a person be physically dead? Perfect. That went right in line with my previous question. How would you know the original consciousness that occupied the body is what returned once raised? So that all comes to living in the spirit and discerning and actually being in sync with the spirit while you're working. It's not something you'd be able to do out of your carnality. Let's see. How do I know if I'm doing a good job in this incarnation, like really on the path of the original reason sent? Spending time with the seven spirits and the royal family. Obtainment in the sense of pushing in career and wanting to make money to satisfy your own wants. Okay, so yeah, in that degree, I agree with them. I agree with most religions. If you're chasing the material world, you're not ruling the material world. Nothing's wrong with having those things, but those things shouldn't have you. Why do people experience nightmares when they sleep to the extent that they're afraid to go to sleep? So dreams, again, are messages. And sometimes the message just is not comfortable. So one of the reasons behind nightmares is that people are getting warned about something. They're getting a message. They're getting confronted with an aspect of their life that they're not necessarily ready to deal with. I'll take a page from my own life. When I understood that about dreams and nightmares, I actually started to look forward to nightmares, because that meant it was going to tell me an issue more times than not that I was running from. It was actually giving me a solution if I let the story play out. So this is especially common with reoccurring nightmares, where if you let the scene play out, you actually get the solution at the end of it. My brother, my former youth pastor, he actually was telling me a story about that same thing happening to him. He was telling me about, and this is when I was a teenager, a preteen. He was telling me about how he was having this reoccurring nightmare of this woman chasing him, and then he'd get on a school bus and take off, and then the dream would end. But he kept having the dream over and over again. And he said eventually the whole dream paid off. And what happened was, when the woman finally got to him, it wasn't a bad thing. And what ended up happening in reality, right? Vehicles oftentimes represent ministry. They represent purpose. Well, he was on a school bus. He was our youth pastor. Pretty much what it was warning him about was just the transition and the chaos that was about to happen about him getting married. He wasn't married yet. He was actually actively running from marriage because he was comfortable being a youth pastor. And they actually traded each other off. Shortly after he got married, he ended up not being the youth pastor anymore. But that whole scenario was a terrifying nightmare for him. In other cases, people are being tormented in their sleep. They're encountering demons. They're being taken advantage of in their sleep. Now, that's something else. But I've learned to just read dreams for what they are. What is this dream about? What is this actually saying? Where is it coming from? And then I work with it from there. Does diet matter as far as our practice of spirituality? No. Being vegetarian, being vegan, not eating meat, not eating pork, none of it affects us spiritually. Let's see. Do the people that were raised from the dead still carry the diseases they died of? There were cases, or most of the time, no. When someone's raised from the dead, they usually come back fine. Just depending on the strength of the dead raiser. Right? My last dead raising, I was able to bring back alive, but I think he's still in the hospital. So I'm not that good at my job. But at the same time, there were people who came back to life multiple times and just didn't live right, so kept dying from the same thing, like my spiritual father, Cobus van Rensburg. He died of cancer 3 times. So it gets convoluted in that area. The Bible speaks of taking people in their physical form up into heaven, and they'll return the day of judgment. What's that? That's a lifestyle that I introduce y'all to. What are the 7 spirits in the royal family? Sorry, I tried to watch all your videos. So start with my Sonship and Mysticism Basics playlist, and any of the videos on the 7 spirits in the royal family. So the royal family is just my term that I use for Elohim, the gods, the family of gods. And the 7 spirits are the 7 teachers appointed by them to teach and train us. Would raising the dead also require that person wanting to be physically alive again? Funny enough, no. T.L. Osborne and Smith Wigglesworth both have stories of them raising people from the dead who came back and fussed at them. So it was still successful against their will. Smith Wigglesworth's wife famously told him, "Let me die. I don't want to be here." Isn't resuscitation considered a form of raising from the dead? Technically, but that's not what I'm talking about when I mention it. I mean, like, actually gone. I'm not even talking about medical death where they temporarily stop the heart to perform surgery, then restart it. Let's see. Names seem to trip me up. I have a hard time connecting with entities that have never introduced themselves to me. For example, Yeshua. How can I move past that? Connect with the Son, Christ's energy. Just use any of his actual names, or ask him what his name is. Let's see. Do you see sons with music ministry callings operating in the kingdom and have ended the worship leader role? If so, any names? Not quite. I have a bunch of musicians in Cave of Mystery that are currently on that transition. My wife is one. She's kind of moving out of the worship leader role and into just music ministry. Is healing for everyone? Yes. Some people say that it depends on the soul contract. No. I'm drawn to Archangel Michael. What does that mean? It could mean a few things. I might be connected. He might actually like you, because Michael doesn't like a lot of people. Might have something to teach you, things to learn. Maybe you're called to his quadrant of the empire. It's a few options. I once asked to see the secrets of the universe. 3 men came while asleep. I got afraid and declined to go. Were they sent by El? Also saw Yeshua, but he didn't speak. He just stared. Were they sent by El? Possibly. I don't know. What do you think about the people that passed on without knowing the truth? Just that. It's a casualty. They passed on because they didn't know the truth. But yeah. Do you believe praying to saints and miracles done through the intercession of saints acceptable? No, that's not something I teach. What's your view on using plant medicine as a way of connecting with or learning from the royal family? It's an unnecessary step. I won't demonize it. It's just unnecessary. Will this be loaded to YouTube? Yeah, it's already on YouTube. It'll just be in the live section. What about dreams? About drowning or suffocating? What could that mean? It just depends on the context of the whole dream. It's a reason I won't release a dream dictionary, because things mean different things depending on the message they're trying to get across. One drowning dream could be about how you need to leave your current job. Another one could be about something completely different. What role do you see technology playing on people right now? It plays whatever role people let it play. I don't see it as an uncontrollable force. I see it as an accomplice to whatever devices we go forward with. What is enlightenment to you? Finally, this is a good one. So enlightenment has a few answers. Enlightenment is knowing who you are. At the very least, it also could speak to a state of awareness, a level of inner illumination and inner awareness. An actual level of perception. Is destiny swapping real? Yeah. If so, does God intervene if the person they're swapping with is unaware? They can, but usually no. The royal family doesn't get involved just because we don't like stuff. We forget we're gods. They help us when we ask for help, but mainly they let us figure this stuff out. That was the whole point of giving us dominion. They don't micromanage. Some teach that the Jesus story was modeled after a person that lived named Emmanuel. What's your understanding of this? Yeshua's other name is Emmanuel. It's the same person. What's your outlook on pork? It's just another option at a barbecue. Let's see. Okay, y'all. The people who've been following me for a while, did I ever actually upload the video about pork? Why pork is considered unclean? Did that ever make it to YouTube, or is that only on Patreon? Let's see. The book God's Generals are made up of Christian ministers. Did they deal with Yahweh or Yeshua? Both. Wigglesworth? Yeah, that's his last name. He was Scottish, I think. Let's see. Does a vasectomy affect the flow of sexual energy in the body? If the sexual energy circulates throughout the body, could a vasectomy have any negative effect on the person's overall well-being? Let's just say there's a bunch of other factors in play other than a vasectomy. Nat, I hate to answer it that way because I'm almost not answering your question. Is there such a thing as blue avians? Maybe. I don't know him by that name. What are your thoughts on Darius Wright? I knew that was coming. I don't know anything about him. Is there a cord that connects our body to our astral body? Some people experience it, but that's probably because they're pulling their soul through their body. But as far as me, I don't experience any cords or any of that. People claim they dream of numbers and play the numbers in lottery and won millions of dollars. Is this from a good source? It's really just information. I can't discern the source off of like a story in that way, but some things the soul can just do. In the same way that if you're looking on Earth for a treasure chest, you find a map and it says X marks the spot. You go to X, you find the gold. You just look. It was just your physical eyes. The soul is very similar where it can just see stuff sometimes, apart from another entity getting involved. Let's see. Are the cloud of witnesses spirits also like the seven? Yeah, they're spirits. So when figures like Archangel Michael, Father, and the rest of the people are working with them at once, how exactly does that work? Is it copies of that energy? Time and space is only a limiter to people who live under time and space. Anything above it isn't affected by it. So they can be whenever and wherever they want to be, because time and space are subject to them at that point. What does it mean to have the same dream twice in a night? Same answer. You didn't get the message, so it retried. If you could give one message to all of humanity, what would it be? Keep it simple. Is density and dimensions different for everyone? Similar but different structures. We can be in the same place and experience it very different depending on how we live our lives. See, probably Patreon, but we went to a barbecue joint together. Look, I know I made it. I know it. I know it's on Patreon. I don't remember if it made its way to YouTube or not. But yeah, that's Kenny. We met in person a few years back. What's the significance of the griffin, the winged lion? It just depends on whatever it's associated with. I don't really give meanings to individual things. It all fits within a context. How was the celebration today? Sorry if I missed you answering that already. So this is step one. The Cave of Mysteries birthday is actually tomorrow, June 24th. So tomorrow we're doing just a prayer gathering in Nairobi and Kahawa Sakari. And then on Thursday, we're doing like a gathering. Me and Apostle Wasango will be teaching and training. So if you're in the Nairobi area, you're welcome to visit us. I wonder if there are denser planets than Earth. Okay. Okay, it's on Patreon. So I'll add that to YouTube soon. It's long overdue. How long can a person live in the physical? As long as they want. Death is a choice. Death is very much a decision. We just get tricked into thinking we have to make it. How long does it take for a man to regain holy strength after, or is it deeper than just the body? That just comes down to personal health overall. Some people say fasting raises your frequency. What's your take on fasting? It just depends on how they're fasting. Fasting can do a lot of things. It just depends on how a person uses it. Because fasting can also do nothing. Let's see. Are there laws that we're supposed to follow, like in the Old Testament, or are we supposed to just reconnect to who we are with the royal family? There are laws, but the laws change depending on the specific kingdom you're working with. If you're still working for Yahweh, you got a lot more rules to follow. You working with Yeshua, it's love. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love the rest of the family. How can one heighten their spiritual awareness without having a near-death experience? By living a spiritual life overall. A lifestyle of immersion. That's why all this stuff seems natural for me. I didn't have one encounter a decade ago and just tell people about it. I turned that into a lifestyle. So I prioritized it to let it be normal. Was Jesus really crucified? No, Yeshua was, though. Did he completely die? Yes. Was Mary Magdalene really a prostitute as portrayed in the Bible? The Bible actually never says she was a prostitute. Christians did that. Why did Michael fight for the body of Moses with the devil? Who needs the body and for what? Well, there's a lot in a body, right? There's epigenetics, there's codes, there's information, there's blood. There's a lot of stuff, especially with Moses. Moses was walking around fully transfigured. He was actually keeping it from being used from the wrong person. Why did the Pharaoh's headband have a vulture and a cobra? So the vulture represented Nekabet and the cobra represented Wajet. Pretty much the upper and lower kingdoms. In the same way, it could also represent the above and the below. So he wears that on his crown to say, I run all of this. I'm connected to what's above and what's below, and I'm king of them both. Okay, let's see. I was referring to the earth and the universe, I guess. So when it comes to 13, let's see. So I guess if we're talking about just the universe, it can get to about 13. How long do you plan on living in the physical? I plan on experiencing a great year before I retire. How can I make sure I live in Yeshua's kingdom and not Yahweh's? So that's okay. So working with Yeshua instead of Yahweh, there's a video I did recently on detoxing Yahweh. That'll be helpful. But overall, you get most of this stuff just through your personal relationship with Yeshua. He helps you detox and he helps you learn his ways. Would your outlook on someone dying not knowing the truth be them not being awakened or self-realized or not knowing what their exact experience would be after death or dying? Do you know how you'll be after? So again, death is completely a choice. I wouldn't even be the first person to teach that or the first person to experience it. As far as someone dying not knowing the truth, it's them not knowing that they didn't have to die in the first place, which is why they died. As far as the other truths that they didn't know, all of it's a byproduct of ignorance. How do we stop resisting our mission? You just agree with it, and then you learn it, you practice it, you prioritize it, especially because we're not in a rush. So actually, I just made a video about not being in a rush the other day. You take your time, learn yourself, learn what you're supposed to be, and prepare for it. How was your experience with the American school system? I pretty much had to teach myself outside. American school system sucks. I just so happen to like to read, so I went and found my own history books and everything else on my own. Is there such a planet? I don't know. Who would the 13 beings be? So let's see. Okay, so there's mom, dad, and Yeshua. There's Yeshua's wife, his two sons. There's Yahweh, his wife, his two sons. There's the seven spirits. That's why I'm like, it just depends on who we're counting. You know, grandkids get included at some point. It just depends on who we're counting. We can get it to about 13. Oh, a great year. So a great year is, okay, so an age is about 2,000 years. That's the zodiac houses, the Maseroth houses that we're in. Right now, we're talking about age of Pisces, age of Aquarius. Well, in order for us to come all the way back around through that whole cycle, that is a great year. So I want to experience one of those before I think about retiring. I've heard claims that Nephilim bodies exist on Earth in stasis. What's your view on this? And will they be taken over those bodies when heaven on earth is closer? So my entire understanding of the Nephilim is completely different than most people. Just that, yeah, Nephilim were just the long story short, right? This needs to be its own video, really. Victoria's been telling me to make a full teaching on this specifically for forever, so I apologize. But the Nephilim are just humans and gods, which are the same thing. It's a class. It's a class. Nephilim is to the real world what Mudblood is to Harry Potter, right? It's just saying we're better than them. Y'all shouldn't have mixed, but it's the same species. We'll listen to your healing prayer over and over. Will it be effective for people? I've had people get healed from the healing prayer. I've had people get healed just watching the recordings from the last few healing sessions. So people can get healed from a few ways. How long before we achieve heaven on earth? That's up to us. We just got work to do. Have you had any cool spiritual encounters recently? There's a bunch of stuff I consider normal that y'all might consider cool. This stuff is just my life. Is everything predetermined? No, everything is decided. We make choices. Is it possible to reverse aging? If so, how would one go about it? Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people start to age backwards. Most of my community is in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and I have a few 80-year-olds. I've seen several of them start to get younger, start to get their mobility back, wrinkles start to go, hair start to turn back in color over time. Most of it is just not agreeing with decay as you age. The body listens and does whatever you tell it to do. Is there an order to who teaches you, like in your next save point in a video game? In a way. But that all comes down to the seven spirits. Like, you'll learn from them what you need to learn at whichever level you can handle. 26,000 years. There we go. I want to experience one of those at least once. Let's see. It teaches that the event at Golgotha released information onto the world that can facilitate higher evolution for all of humanity. What's your take on any benefits related to this event? Which Golgotha event? I've heard you talk about different kinds of baptisms. Are there other rituals in different cultures that would achieve the same results? Or are they? So I teach y'all the stuff that works the best, not everything that I know. I'd like to keep this stuff simple. So I teach the baptisms because they work the best. Is there such a thing as karma? Yeah, someone asked that earlier. It's just cause and effect. It's your metaphysical footprint. How much of an effect does your cause have? How do you make conscious decisions in a practical sense? You make decisions. That's it. You make up your mind. It's nothing more than that. It's the same decision-making faculty where you go, I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? Oh, I guess I'll go get this. And that's it. It's just decisions. What would make someone need multiple healing sessions? Or does that not happen? It just depends on the person and their receptivity. Like, yeah. If we're talking about someone that needs it, overall, as long as you're still, you typically get what you need. The people who usually miss out on their healings are trying way too hard and are actively fighting me the whole time. Everyone else stays still. So the easiest people to heal are atheists because usually they're still. Christians make me work hard. Let's see. Can you explain this contradiction? You just have to go back and read who he was talking to and what he was responding to. Yeshua does this thing where he responds to the question being asked, not necessarily teaching about how all of reality works. He did that a lot when addressing hecklers, where he answered what they were asking him in a way to actually correct them rather than teaching them about reality. All right. Okay. People ask me that. We're 2 hours in. Oh, yeah. Not for much longer. I'm just having fun. How many Christ conscious people are on earth today, including you? Several. I don't have an exact number for that. I wish I did. Since toxins are just a part of this earthly realm, is detoxification the best way to keep healthy? In a way, that's one of the ways, but it's more than just toxins. We train our body into unhealth more than anything. Does Yeshua frown upon a married man that sleeps with his mistress? Yeah. When you say Yeshua, are you referring to the Supreme Son? Yeah. Or the Yeshua consciousness that is on the same level as Yahweh? Both. It's the same person. Oh, so just the crucifixion? Of course. There's a bunch of important stuff that happened through the crucifixion. What's your view of the evolution theory versus our divine origins? They're both true. They're just talking about different things and different people. Is the universe an astral prisons? No. Let's see. Greek mythology is real, not mythology. Yeah. It's really just them recording. You take all these ancient civilizations that have experiences with the same entities, they tell their account of the story just a little bit different. Or in some cases, they hear the story from someone else and then embody it within their culture. They assimilate it. Let's see, does Earth have cycles of cataclysm? Technically, but it's not necessarily planned in that way. It's more so that we keep making the same mistakes, so we keep getting the same results. But it's not like you were saying, like 2040, something bad is supposed to happen. I'm like, it's not on a calendar in that way. It's just consequences. What do you think about using an oracle? Do you think it's a good practice? No, not really. I don't really like using anything extra. If I'm trying to interact with the royal family, I just talk to them. I don't go find a person to talk to them for me, because then I have to deal with them in the middle of my message. Do you believe El is the being who self-created, Mother is the universe, and Father is the spark of consciousness, Yeshua is the spark of life? No. I actually did a recent video on creation, which will kind of help you out in that regard. Would you say life is about balance? In many ways, yes. If I'm nervous to visit heaven, could I still visit, or is it preventing me from that experience? Fear will keep you from having any good experiences. That's why someone asked me earlier about how long it takes me to get people into heaven. I said at most 30 minutes usually, and that's because most of the time I'm spending getting the person to relax. What does being still while getting healed look like? Or what do you mean by that? Not being mentally busy, not trying to help me. Just like surgery. Even doctors know this. This is why they put you to sleep, so they can work. You make it hard when you're active and you're awake and you're aware, you're looking, you're getting scared, you're overthinking, you're doing way too much, you're moving around. Even surgeons know it's best to work on someone staying still. Let's see. I like how you answered that. So, which people is evolution theory describing versus our divine origin? So, you are trying to get me in trouble, Jeannie. But I'll say this: genetically, according to science, Black people do not have Neanderthal DNA. That's not in our. That's not in our epigenetics. That's not there for us. Oldest ancestor of melanated people, I believe, is the Twa, who people call the pygmies. Is divinity a sin? No. Divinity is actually the solution to sin. Sin is not knowing that you're divine. Do we need to activate our 15 strand DNA? No. You just need to know who you are in the spirit, and everything else catches up. Are we equal to God in essence? It depends on the God. We're part of their family, yeah. If man is made by the divine, does that mean AI will have a soul because it was made by man? Nope. Man didn't put a soul in it, because man doesn't really know how to create all that well. Seems that some members of the royal family are quite cruel to each other, or were in the past. Why is that? They're no different than us. They are us. Some of the gods we get mad about in history is us. It's no different than our earthly dysfunctional families. In the US, there are locations considered to have strong spiritual energy or significance because that positively influence the future. If used that way, yeah. Is the kingdom of God or the royal family the highest kingdom in the universe and existence? Yes. Can you elaborate on the evolution? See, this is why I didn't want to answer that one. Let's see. Here y'all go with that. How would you go about getting the ability to regenerate your body? It's something you already have. The body is already self-healing. You just have to let it do more of that on its own. But any of this stuff, I'll tell y'all this, all the stuff that I know, I learned from the seven spirits and I learned from the royal family. I give y'all my sources in every teaching. The same, like I say that because a lot of y'all can even skip me and go straight to them and get the same results. So learning about regeneration, you can learn that from a few places. Spirit of might, spirit of the Lord, Yeshua, mother, father, they'll all teach you, you can learn a little bit of all of that from them. When it comes to having a light and loving heart, what is considered the best practice to access this state and fully embody it? Working with mother, because she makes sure that the heart is actually pure, and she actually teaches us how to work with hearts, how to actually deal with each other. Is the royal family here on earth right now in physical bodies? Yes. Yeshua comes to earth in a physical body all the time. Mother does it. The father does it because he thinks it's funny, but they pop in physically all the time. It's one of the most important verses in the Bible. It says, be careful how you treat strangers because you could be entertaining an angel unaware. The royal family pops in all the time. Are mantis benevolent and higher dimensional guardians or malevolent scientists? They're just bugs. Is the Bible a starter book about the royal family and their history of mankind? I would never tell people to start with the Bible when they're trying to understand the royal family. Let's see. When you're learning to be yourself through self-realization, what's the fastest way? Royal family and seven spirits. Oh, mantis ETs? I don't know anything about them. What's the easiest way to overcome fear? Embracing love. You let yourself receive love. You let love begin to flow through you. Fear starts to fade away. Can you talk with bugs like animals? Technically, we can talk to just about anything. I don't have anything to say to them, but the ability exists. Do you know of people who've graduated from the seven spirits? Maybe. Y'all, I live on an island. I don't interact with a lot of other mystics these days. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who I would have said a few years ago started to regress over the last 3 years. So, I don't want to name drop for that reason. What would you tell us to read first instead of the Bible to learn about the royal family? So, that's a little tricky. There's several books that I think are decent. Of course, there's my book, Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism. There's the Sumerian texts. I believe that the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Atrahasis, they do a good job. But overall, I don't really recommend books for getting to know them. I recommend them to get to know them. Let's see. Let's see. Why did the all split into mom and dad? Expression. Everything needed expression, and it had to start somewhere. Let's see. If melanated people are original man, why are most so destructive and aggressive compared to white culture these days? That is not historical. That's just racist. What does it mean if bugs start coming around you more? Does it mean anything? Most of the time, it means you smell good to bugs. Most of them are decomposers. So if you're outside and you're sweating, you smell like a corpse to them and they're hungry. So even if you can't feel it, a lot of them are trying to eat you. In other cases, it could be due to the frequency or the energy you're giving off is attractive to them. But most of the time, bugs come close because they thought you were food. So butterflies landing on your hand, that's not because you're like Snow White. It's because they're trying to eat you. Let's see. Why do we experience sleep paralysis? We experience sleep paralysis because different practices require it. Some people's methods require it, or certain thought processes lead there. Some cases it's fear. In some cases it's just the mechanic of it is the awareness getting caught between two forms. What book do you recommend to learn about the seven spirits and how to interact with them? Fullness, Guide to Sonship and Mysticism. Are you referring to the seven spirits of God in Revelation? Yeah, Revelation, Isaiah. I think they pop up in Ezekiel. They show up in Esther, or at least are portrayed in a way in Esther. What's the difference between meditation and prayer? Prayer is a conversation. Meditation is just your soul going into going through updates. What types of aliens have you encountered? I don't name the aliens that I meet, that I've met at least. So technically, I think y'all would call them Lyrans, the lion people. Seen them a few times, and how in the world would I describe it? So there's this episode of Dragon Ball Super where they're dealing with Zamasu, and he's looking at the mortals, and there's these dinosaur-looking creatures that are like prehistoric and caveman-like. I've seen something that looks like those before. Have you seen your other lives? Remember, I haven't been a human before. But as far as what I was doing before human, yeah, I remember that stuff. I know exactly who I am. Let's see. I didn't mean to sound negative. I just see most melanated communities in the US are prone to violence and poverty. That is by design. And that's, yeah, the way the US works, you're supposed to see us that way. And even the fact that you see us that way is by design. That's on purpose. The CIA wins again. Let's see. Do you meditate, and how often or for how long? I'm always in somewhat of a state of meditation. How accurate were the Egyptians when it came to the royal family? It just depended on what they were talking about, depending on the myth. Sometimes their myths are stories, in that they're trying to tell you how a certain science works. In other cases, they're giving you history. But the Egyptians did a good job. Now, as far as just the conversation about the Black experience in America, what happened and all of that stuff, there's a live that I did a long time ago, maybe a year ago now, where I talked about US history. There's actually a guy who's a fan of mine. He won't admit he's a fan, but he's a fan because he shows up to every interview that I'm on, and he comments that he's like, this guy's a fraud. It's because I made a video about US history. So I recommend that. Y'all remember, history, science, spirituality. I teach all three. Will you be doing one-on-ones anytime soon? One-on-ones are booked on my website on the homepage. Will you tell us what deity you are? No. Either you see it or you don't. I'm so glad you and Jeannie Dot are in my life. Jeannie's a good guy. I like Jeannie too. What's your take on Curry Blake and Bill Johnson? I won't say anything about Bill, but what I will say about Curry is that Curry is a really good healer. Years ago, I actually watched his healer technician training videos. I want to say I have all of them downloaded. Theologically, I disagree with most of it, but it works. It's one of those methods that work if you want to go that route. But I like Curry. Curry is very straight to the point, and that's about all I'll say. As far as Bill, no comment. Would you consider the Emerald Tablets book to read? Yeah. So if y'all join the Discord server, which you can find the link on my website, caveofmystery.org, there's a section there called Reading Recommendations, full of a bunch of good books. So, what does heaven on earth look like? In terms of everyday life, does it resemble aspects of life as we know it today, but without the more petty or lower human behaviors? That's part of it. But most of what heaven on earth looks like, y'all get from actually going into heaven. I do my best to stress that y'all don't need me to go. Y'all just like me being in the story. But that's something even I'm learning day by day is what heaven looks like, how it operates, and then bringing that same culture here. It's part of why y'all won't see me with a church, because as much as I've been in heaven, I've never come across one there. Do we have different perspectives at different dimensions? Yeah. Would you say the heart is like the echo chamber you were in the spirit? No. I heard Bill Johnson is a Mason. I won't call him that, but he has his flaws. We appreciate you coming on to talk to us. Many of us are experiencing things we don't yet have words to articulate. Thank y'all. Any thoughts on Darius J. Riots? Ooh, the second Darius. I thought I'd get more of those, but I have I don't know Darius. I got adopted into his community. I was never a part of it. Y'all adopted me. I don't know the guy. Were you incarnated on another planet before this incarnation, or is what you remember here before here spiritual, astral, energetic? I know exactly who and what I am in all these realms. But as far as other planets, technically, what's your take on the indigenous people of America? Well, I am Native American too. um, but what part about it? Hopefully, y'all not trying to get me in trouble with the Native American discussion too. We'll see. What is the sun? I don't think at this point I can answer that question anymore. It's this ball of light far away from us that gives us light and energy back. What are Freemasons exactly? It's a secret society that mixes in, it's an occult secret society. Pretty much they just use barely spirituality, mainly astral and electromagnetic sciences. Let's see. Isn't skin color just the color of the physical suit and our divine nature formless, so race is irrelevant? Nope, not at all. Could you explain pain during childbirth and men working off the sweat of their brow? Is this literal or in the law in Yeshua's kingdom? That's based on the curses given by Yahweh in the Old Testament. Let's see. What do you mean by you want to be retired? Isn't it best if we stay on Earth, or is it better to go to another dimension later? Yeah, when I retire, I might not want to live on Earth, but y'all keep me around. Earth and heaven shouldn't be too different. Give me a minute. Let's see. Then why is Yeshua coming back here with the saints? It all coalesces together over time, but it just depends. Because, if this was a one-man project, I'd wrap this stuff up myself. But because I know I'm working with all of you, everybody, right? Might take a while. I might get sick of this and choose to retire one day. Have you heard about Pastor John Anosika? Yes. Who can send people to different realms and dimensions? Yeah, he's cool. Let's see. You can easily find out about Darius without even trying. I've never tried. Because think about it. By the time I found out he existed, I'm already going into heaven every day. I have a relationship with the royal family. I'm healing the sick, casting out devils, raising the dead. I don't have a reason. What are your thoughts on people like Justin Paul Abraham and others saying they've interacted with Enoch? Have you interacted with him? I've met Enoch maybe twice. Me and him don't have a close relationship, just in passing. He gave me advice one day, nothing much. The other mystics, for the most part, are legit. Should we consider the world as Yeshua did, preaching, healing, working miracles wherever, whenever? I think that's a good culture for us to bring. It's my goal to get more of you doing that so I could work on other stuff. Can the royal family answer people's questions indirectly through AI chats? Technically, yes, but I would rather you just talk to them. Get rid of the middlemen. I met a blue female bird lady in a higher dimension that revealed as a guide to me. Do you know her? Nope. Did we originate from Africa or were we already here? A little bit of both. Are planets portals? Pretty much everything can be a portal. Atoms are portals. Aren't all races equal to God? Which God? Have you heard about the number sequences developed by Doctor for all kinds of situations? No. So I don't have any comment. Do you see supernatural things daily or only sometimes? For me, it's my life. This doesn't turn off. Who has a funnier sense of humor? Father, mother, or the kids? They have different senses of humor. The father does stuff that he thinks is funny, but we think is scary. Yeshua probably has the most what we would consider sense of humor that we like. Can you give a summary of the history of mankind and Elohim on Earth? You can watch the video I did maybe like 2 weeks ago. It's on the YouTube channel. Will all corruption eventually be cleansed? If so, does that include souls after? Yes. Everything eventually works itself out. How do you balance giving information without scaring people, but encouraging them to learn more for themselves? Oh, I skipped questions. But at the same time, I just maintain it as a balance. I'm actively discerning what y'all can handle. And the best way to share it to at least get you to move in the right direction to bump into more of the same truth. Because some stuff I can't just outright say. You have to encounter it to even know what I'm talking about. The God is source I meant. You got to tell me which person. We're dealing with a plurality here. Let's see. I have a different side of me I call he, and he's cold. Who is he? I don't know who he is. You just introduced me to him. I don't know. Is heaven has arrived on the planet? Does it include any of our day-to-day activities like sports, dancing? What can you share on this matter once the heaven descended happened? So it's not just about a descent. It's about us actively manifesting it. And it's not fully here. We're still getting, I'm still getting y'all used to the idea you have access to heaven and don't have to die to get it. Eventually, y'all get beyond that, and then y'all take me up on, the reality I talk about, where heaven is something you have access to all day long. And then y'all actually start experiencing it all the time. And then that becomes your culture. And then your culture begins to, that starts to bring heaven's realities into the earth. But it's one of those things you have to see. What are some of the things that the Father finds humorous, but we find scary? When y'all go to interact with him and y'all see absolutely nothing and feel absolutely nothing, he thinks that's funny. Once someone is at your level, will they also always see everything in the spiritual? So this isn't even a level. This is just a culture. I've prioritized this. Everyone has the same ability to prioritize their spiritual life. So yeah, can any race ascend? Yeah. What is the all-seeing eye, and what do they mean by this? I'm not sure. Are the members of the royal family or seven spirit ever offended by jewelry we wear as humans? For example, Egyptian symbols. I'm wearing one right now, actually. And no, maybe depending on some of the insignia, it just depends on what it is, really. But no, they're not anti-Egypt. I want to know what makes Holy Spirit main form scary. Is it bad? Well, no, I wouldn't say that. It's not so much that she's scary per se. I mean, she can be, but again, one of those things you gotta experience. Some Freemasons do, yeah. Let's see, to rank up with their society along. Yeah, I'm not anti or pro Mason. I'm not in that. Is my strong heart the reason I'm having difficulty with OBE? No, you're struggling because you're trying to get your soul to come out of your body. John G. Lake was an ascended master. Did he transcend and form? I wouldn't say all of that. He was a great teacher. He was really good at what he was doing. One of the best healers. One of my personal favorites, but I wouldn't go that far. Are emotions and thoughts also mother? How do you differentiate between father and mother in nature? I just get to know them as individuals and then I recognize them everywhere. Will our abilities get stronger after disclosure? Pretty much gifts and abilities get stronger with usage. What's your normal daily routine? I don't have one. I just live an immersed life. I'm always aware of stuff happening in all these realities all the time. Why is there power in Jesus' name? There isn't. Y'all are going to hate me for that. That's okay. Let's see. Thoughts on Helena Blavatsky? She's just a mystic that had some encounters and wrote in a very cryptic manner. So a lot of people miss all of her writings by going too literal or too abstract. She used a little bit of both. Does our soul reside within the body? No. Doesn't even live in here, which is why I don't teach OBE. I teach Triunion. So what is happening when people say they come out of their bodies? They are having that experience. It just doesn't have to happen. It's an added step. Favorite dish in Kenya? Ugali, barbecue, and sukuma wiki. Are there any spiritual implications of the movie Disclosure Day? I haven't seen it, so no comment. All right, y'all. So it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm going to wrap up. Let's see. How do you not get too excited when having interactions with the royal family? It comes with practice. I can't really advise you on your first experience with them because people are going to react how they react. But when building a culture, learn to treat them normal. Where do we get confused at with Yeshua and Jesus? Rome. Have you encountered reptilians and Nordics? Are Nordics benevolent? Are there some good reptilians? Yeah, so I don't believe in racism in any race, right? Even when we start to deal with the aliens and other species, I don't believe all Lyrans are good, all reptilians are bad. No, it's an individual thing. Do you teach Triunion in your sonship book? Yes, also on my Patreon. There's recordings of it. Is it true about seeing colors we can't comprehend? Yes. All right, y'all. So that is it for this session. This was nice. Remember, y'all, I do Q&A sessions the first Saturday of every month, unless I'm on a break month. And just as a heads up, my next break is going to be in August. I will be gone for the whole month of August. So y'all might have some pre-recorded teachings, y'all might not, but yeah, I'm going to be gone for August. And yeah, so let's see. School of the Prophets is out. School of the Evangelists is out. Healers class, few more classes are coming out soon. I'm trying to have a lot finished by the end of July. Let's see. If you haven't already, my book, Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism, you can get it off Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can get the ebook off of my website. For those of you who are beginners, there's a playlist on YouTube called Sonship and Mysticism Basics. On my Patreon, there's a collection called Where to Begin. Between those three resources, you have enough to get started and find your footing in a new culture. So that's it for this session. I will see y'all next time. As usual, if you want to connect with me and all the other stuff I have going on, you can do so via my website, caveofmystery.org. I love y'all. Be blessed. Take care. And until next time, later.